Be so disciplined that results become inevitable. Be so disciplined that results become inevitable. That's not just a nice line. It's a way to live. Right now, too many people rely on luck, motivation, or the perfect timing. They work hard for a week, then slow down when it gets tiring. They keep starting over because they've never built the one thing that makes success: certain daily discipline. This isn't about being perfect. It's about keeping your word to yourself. Even when you're tired, even when no one is watching, and even when it feels like nothing is happening. It's about showing up so many times that your results have no choice but to appear. In this video, I'm going to walk you through exactly how to create that kind of discipline. If you're tired of stopping halfway or waiting for the right moment, watch this until the end. Because once you get this right, success will stop being a question. Show up for yourself, even when nobody supports you. When you decide to be disciplined, you are making a promise to yourself that you will keep going regardless of who claps for you, who notices you, or who even understands you. Discipline is not built on applause. It is not built on being recognized. It is built on the quiet decision to show up again and again for your own life. Most people wait for someone to cheer them on before they take action. They wait for friends to notice, for family to encourage them, for someone to say, "I believe in you." But here's the: you cannot depend on that. People have their own lives, their own struggles, their own distractions. If you rely on them to fuel your discipline, you will stop every time the praise fades. That is why you must learn to be your own reason to keep going. When you show up for yourself, you are telling the world, "I will do this because it matters to me." You are not asking for permission. You are not waiting for an invitation. You are saying, "I am in control of what I build." And that's where the real transformation begins. The day you stop waiting for others to believe in you is the day you start moving faster. There will be mornings when you wake up and no one asks how you are doing. No one will say, "I hope you stay on track." Today you will walk into your day, and it might feel like nobody cares whether you follow through or not. That is when discipline is tested. That is when you choose to either keep going or give up quietly. And the people who succeed, the people who see results, they keep going. They work in silence. They move forward without an audience. And they build a life that speaks for itself. Think about this. Your habits today are shaping your future. Whether anyone notices or not, every workout, every focused hour, every time you choose the harder option instead of the easy way out, you are making deposits into your future success. And just because no one is watching doesn't mean it's not working. In fact, most of the real progress in life happens when no one is paying attention. Discipline is a skill you strengthen by action, not by waiting for motivation. Motivation comes and goes. It's nice to have, but it's not reliable. Discipline says, "I don't feel like it, but I will do it anyway." It is making the choice to act when it's inconvenient, when you are tired, when you don't have any visible reward yet. That is the discipline that makes results inevitable. Some days will feel heavy. You might feel like you're the only one fighting for something. Your friends may not understand why you're putting in extra work. They might tell you to relax, take it easy, live a little. And in those moments, you have to remember your goals belong to you. They don't need to make sense to anyone else. You are the one who will live with the rewards of your discipline, and you are the one who will live with the cost of giving up. You don't need to announce everything you are doing. You don't need to prove to anyone that you're working hard. Your progress will speak louder than your explanations. When you commit to showing up for yourself, you stop chasing approval and start building proof. Every day you keep your commitment. You are creating evidence that you can trust yourself. And when you trust yourself, you move with more confidence. The truth is, people will eventually notice, but only after you've done the work for a long time without them noticing. They will see the results, and they might call it luck or talent. They will not see the days you showed up tired, the hours you worked in silence, the times you said no to distractions. But you will know that you built your life by showing up even when it felt like no one cared. To live this way, you need a clear reason. Why are you doing what you're doing? If your reason is weak, you will quit when no one is cheering for you. But if your reason is strong, if it's something that truly matters to you, then you will keep moving forward. Write it down. Remind yourself of it every morning. Your reason is your anchor when the days feel long and empty. Also, stop looking for perfection in the process. You don't need to have everything figured out before you start. You don't need to feel ready. Showing up is the part that counts. You can improve as you go, but you cannot improve if you are not present. Many people waste months planning and thinking about what they want to do. Discipline is about acting now and adjusting along the way. You must also protect your environment. If you are around people who constantly doubt you, who tell you it's not worth it, who always tempt you to break your commitments, you will need to set boundaries. It's not about cutting everyone off. It's about making sure your time and energy go to the actions that align with your goals, even if that means spending more time alone. For a while, there will be sacrifices. You will skip events. You will miss out on short-term pleasures. And that is where many people fail. They don't want to give up anything, but if you want results that are inevitable, you cannot live like everyone else. You must make choices that align with the future you are building, even when no one understands them. One of the most powerful things you can do is track your progress for yourself. Keep a journal. Write down what you did today to move forward. When you see your own consistency on paper, you don't need anyone else to validate you. You can see with your own eyes that you are showing up for yourself. When the days feel long, break your work into smaller steps. Sometimes the thought of the whole goal feels overwhelming. Instead of thinking about the entire journey, focus on the next action you can take today. To do it well, then do the next one. This keeps you moving and prevents you from quitting just because the big picture feels too far away. Remember, you are building trust with yourself. Every time you follow through, you are proving that your word means something, and this self-trust is powerful. It makes you less dependent on others for validation. It makes you stronger. When life gets unpredictable, you stop waiting for the perfect conditions and start creating progress with what you have. The real reward of discipline is not just the result. It is the person you become in the process. When you show up for yourself, you are shaping your identity. You start to see yourself as capable, as reliable, as someone who can be counted on. That changes how you approach everything in life. You will find that over time it gets easier to choose discipline over excuses. And at first it will feel like a fight. You will have to push yourself hard. But the more you do it, the more it becomes your natural way of living. You won't even question whether or not to show up. You just will. And when you live that way long enough, results are not a question anymore. They are a guarantee. No one can do this for you. No one can hand you the results you want. It is you, day after day, making the decision to show up, to do the work to keep going. And if you keep doing that, especially when nobody is watching, you will look back one day and see that everything you wanted became your reality. Not because you got lucky, not because someone gave it to you, but because you were disciplined enough to make it happen. This is what makes success inevitable. Not talent, not luck. Discipline, the discipline to keep showing up for yourself every single day, until what you've been working for is no longer a dream. It's your life. Chapter 2, do the work, especially when you really do not want to. Discipline is built in the exact moments you feel like doing nothing. The work you do when every part of you wants to stop is the work that defines your future. Most people think progress is about working when they are motivated, when they feel inspired, when conditions are comfortable. But real progress begins when you refuse to listen to that inner voice that tells you to take it easy, to do it later, or to skip it altogether. It's easy to show up on the days you feel good. Anyone can work hard when they are in the mood. But those days are rare compared to the days when you're tired, frustrated, or simply not in the right headspace. What you do in those moments decides whether you are truly committed or only committed when it's convenient. That's why the habit of working through resistance is a skill worth mastering. You will never feel like it every day. You will never wake up each morning bursting with energy and excitement for your responsibilities. Waiting for that feeling is a trap. If you wait until you feel like working, you will spend most of your life in waiting mode. The people who reach their goals are not the ones with the best conditions. They are the ones who work no matter what those conditions are. When you sit down to work on a day you don't want to, you are sending yourself a powerful message. My actions are not controlled by my mood. This is one of the most important psychological shifts you can make. You are telling yourself that your commitments matter more than your temporary feelings. You are proving that your future is built by choices, not emotions. On those low-energy days, it's not about doing everything perfectly. It's about doing something. Start small if you have to, but start often. The act of beginning creates the energy you thought you lacked. You might only intend to work for 10 minutes, but once you're in motion, you find yourself doing much more. The hardest part is not the work itself. It's the decision to start despite not wanting to. Your mind will come up with endless reasons to avoid the work. It will tell you you're too tired, that tomorrow will be better, that you deserve a break. It will present you with distractions that feel urgent, but are not. Understanding this is part of the process. You must learn to recognize these excuses for what they are. Attempts to protect your comfort zone and choose action over them. There's a deep sense of self-respect that comes from following through on a difficult day. You might not feel proud in the moment, but when the day ends, you know you did what needed to be done. That quiet pride is fuel for the next time resistance shows up. You will remember that you've beaten it before, and you can beat it again if you want results that cannot be denied. You have to learn to perform without the crutch of ideal conditions. This means showing up when you didn't sleep well, when the weather is bad, when your mood is off, and when distractions are pulling you in every direction. Each time you do this, you are building a kind of mental toughness that few people develop. Part of making this work possible is creating structure. When you have a clear plan for your day, you take away the decision-making that often leads to procrastination. If you know exactly what needs to be done and when, you reduce the chance of negotiating with yourself. That's why disciplined people rely on routines. They understand that without structure, feelings take over. Another powerful tool is reminding yourself of the cost of skipping the work. Every time you avoid what you should be doing, you make it easier to avoid it again next time. It becomes a pattern, and patterns once set are difficult to break. The same is true for doing the work when you don't want to. Every time you choose discipline over comfort, you make it easier to choose it again in the future. Some days, you will need to simplify the task to get moving. Instead of saying you have to finish the entire project, tell yourself you only need to work on one section. Instead of saying you need to work out for an hour, commit to 10 minutes. This isn't lowering your standards. It's creating a starting point. More often than not, starting leads to more work than you expected to do. You also need to manage your expectations about how it will feel. Many people avoid work because they think they should feel inspired before starting. The truth is, you don't have to feel inspired to act. Action often creates the inspiration you think you need. Waiting to feel ready is a form of delay that keeps you stuck on difficult days. Focus on your reason. Why are you doing this work in the first place? If your why is strong enough, it will push you forward even when you'd rather stop. Keep that reason visible. Write it down. Repeat it to yourself. Remind yourself what's at stake. People give up most often when they forget why they started. Avoid comparing your effort to someone else's. You might see others posting about how hard they work, and it can make you feel like your small actions don't matter. But the truth is, Doing something when you don't want to is far more powerful than doing something when it's easy. The value of your effort is not measured by how it looks to others. It's measured by your consistency. It's also important to remember that your brain is adaptable. The more often you work through resistance, the less intense that resistance becomes. Over time, showing up when you don't want to becomes part of your normal behavior. You stop seeing it as something unusual, and it becomes the standard you hold yourself to. One thing that will help is removing the option to negotiate with yourself. If you've decided you're going to do the work, it's not up for debate. The moment you start debating, you give your feelings too much power. Decide once, then follow through without argument. That's how you train yourself to act, regardless of mood. When you reflect on your life, you will see that the biggest turning points were not the days you felt unstoppable. They were the days you pushed through when you wanted to quit. Those days build confidence, resilience, and a deep sense of ownership over your life. You stop seeing yourself as someone who depends on external conditions and start seeing yourself as someone who creates results through persistence. There is also a satisfaction that comes from completing something you almost avoided. That satisfaction is different from the relief of taking a break. It's stronger, deeper, and lasts longer. It's the satisfaction of knowing you chose growth over comfort, and that choice will always serve you in the long run. When the moment comes and you feel the pull to avoid the work, pause and acknowledge it. Then take the smallest step forward. You can open the laptop, write the first sentence, lift the first weight, make the first call. Once that step is taken, take another and another. Soon you'll realize you're already doing the thing you didn't want to do, and the resistance will lose its power. Do this enough times and it becomes who you are. You become the person who works, regardless of how they feel. You become reliable to yourself, and that reliability is the foundation of inevitable results. People will wonder how you achieved so much, but the answer will be simple. You did the work, especially when you didn't want to. Your progress in life will not be decided by how well you work when you're in the mood. It will be decided by how well you work when you're not. That is the dividing line between those who achieve their goals and those who never get close. And it's a line you can choose to cross every single day. You don't need to wait for the perfect mindset. You don't need to wait for a burst of energy. You need to start, and you need to keep going. If you can do that day after day, even in the moments when you'd rather stop, your results will come. They won't come overnight, but they will come. And when they do, you will know exactly why. Because you were willing to work when you really did not want to. Chapter 3. Train yourself to finish tasks before touching your phone the moment you wake up. The first choice you make sets the tone for your entire day. If your first action is to reach for your phone, you hand over your focus to something outside of yourself before you have even begun. That single decision shapes the way your mind operates for the rest of the day. Instead of being in control, you start reacting to notifications, messages, and information that are designed to pull you in many different directions. Training yourself to finish important tasks before touching your phone is not just about avoiding distraction. It's about taking back control of your time, your attention, and your mental energy. Your phone is one of the most powerful tools in your life, but it is also one of the most addictive. The instant you open it, your brain shifts into a mode of constant stimulation. Messages, updates, social media, news, it all competes for your attention. Once you're pulled in, it becomes harder to return to the work you plan to do. You might tell yourself you're only checking for a minute, but minutes turn into half an hour, sometimes more. And when you finally get back to your tasks, your focus is broken and your energy is scattered. When you make the decision to complete key tasks before touching your phone, you are creating a clear boundary between your priorities and the endless demands of the digital world. You are telling yourself that your goals deserve your best energy, not the leftovers after you've scrolled through other people's lives. This habit teaches you self-control, and it strengthens the mental discipline you need to achieve meaningful results. At first, this will not be easy. You are breaking a pattern that has likely been part of your routine for years. Many people wake up and instinctively check their phone before they even get out of bed. It feels normal, but it is a habit that steals your focus before you've had a chance to use it. The first step is to be aware of how automatic this behavior has become. Awareness gives you the power to change it. Start by identifying the tasks that matter most in your morning. These are the actions that move you closer to your goals. Whether it's writing, exercising, studying, planning your day, or working on a project, decide that these tasks will always come before your phone. It might be one big task or two smaller ones, but they must be completed before you allow yourself to pick up your device. You will notice a difference almost immediately. Without the distraction of your phone, your mind will be clearer. You'll be able to give your full attention to what you're doing. You'll finish faster and with better quality, because you're not stopping to check notifications or switch between apps. The feeling of completing something before you've been pulled into the chaos of the online world is powerful. It creates momentum for the rest of your day. This habit also removes one of the biggest sources of procrastination. Often when people delay starting their work, they tell themselves they'll just check their phone for a moment first. That moment turns into multiple moments, and before they know it, they've lost valuable time. By making a rule for yourself, no phone until the first tasks are done, you eliminate that trap entirely. You no longer negotiate with yourself because the rule is clear. You might feel a sense of discomfort at first. That's normal. The urge to check your phone is strong because your brain has been conditioned to seek constant updates. This is where discipline comes in each time you resist the urge. You are training your mind to prioritize long-term results over short-term. Stimulation, that's a skill that will help you in every area of your life. Some people try to justify checking their phone by saying it helps them wake up or get started. But in reality, it often does the opposite. It pulls them into a mental state of reacting instead of creating. If you truly want to set the tone for a productive day, you need to be intentional about how you spend your first moments. When you finish your most important tasks first, you start your day with accomplishment, not distraction. One of the best ways to make this habit stick is to keep your phone out of reach. When you wake up, charge it in another room or place it far enough away that you have to get out of bed to access it. This small change removes the temptation of grabbing it automatically. You'll find that without your phone nearby, you naturally begin your day more focused and calm. It also helps to prepare your environment the night before. Lay out what you need for your morning tasks so there are no excuses. If you plan to exercise, have your clothes ready. If you're going to write, have your notebook or computer open. If you're going to plan your day, keep your planner and pen on your desk. The easier it is to start, the less likely you are to reach for your phone instead. As you practice this, you'll start to notice a change in the way you think. Instead of waking up wondering what's happening online, you'll wake up thinking about what you want to accomplish. You'll begin to associate mornings with progress instead of distraction. And over time, you'll notice that your days feel longer and more productive because you're starting them with purpose. This habit also has a ripple effect on your mindset. By delaying the instant gratification of checking your phone, you strengthen your ability to delay gratification in other areas. You become more patient, more focused, and more willing to put in the work before seeking reward. That's a trait that separates those who achieve consistent results from those who struggle to stay on track. It's important to recognize that your phone is not the enemy. It's how you use it that matters. Once you've completed your first tasks, you can check it without guilt because you've already invested in yourself. You've already done something that moves you forward. The difference is that now your phone is a tool, not a distraction, controlling your actions over weeks and months. This one habit can transform the way you approach your goals. By starting each day with discipline you are building a foundation for inevitable results. You are proving to yourself that you can resist short-term temptations in order to achieve something great. And the confidence that comes from that is priceless. You will also start to notice that your focus improves in general, because you are training your mind to concentrate without interruptions first thing in the morning. That ability carries over into the rest of your day. You'll find it easier to stay on task, to resist distractions, and to follow through on commitment. In time, you won't see this as a restriction. You'll see it as freedom. Freedom from the constant pull of notifications. Freedom from starting your day in a reactive state. Freedom to use your best hours for what matters most. That kind of freedom is rare in a world that demands your attention every second, and it gives you an advantage over almost everyone around you. It all comes down to a choice you make every morning. Do you want to start your day building your life or consuming someone else's? Do you want to invest in your own priorities or give your first and best energy to things that don't truly matter? Each day you choose your priorities first. You get closer to the life you want. This is not just about productivity. It's about identity. Every time you finish something before touching your phone, you are reinforcing the belief that you are someone who follows through, someone who stays in control, someone who doesn't give in to every impulse. That identity will shape the way you handle challenges, opportunities, and decisions for the rest of your life. You may not see the difference in a single day, but over weeks and months, the change will be clear. You will look back and realize how much more you've accomplished, how much calmer your mornings feel, and how much more confident you've become in your ability to manage yourself. That's the real reward of this discipline. Not just the work you get done, but the person you become in the process. The first minutes of your day are precious. Guard them carefully. Use them to create, to move forward, to build momentum. Leave your phone for later. Once you've done what matters most, the rest of the day is yours to handle with a stronger, more focused mind. And if you repeat this choice every morning, you'll discover just how much you're capable of achieving when you start with yourself, before giving your attention to anything else. Chapter 4, remove activities that steal your time and mental energy. If you want results that you can depend on, you have to guard your time and mental energy like they are your most valuable resources. Because they are. Every single day, there are things pulling at you, asking for your attention, and not all of them deserve it. Some are small distractions. Others are bigger commitments you never should have agreed to. And some are simply habits that drain you without giving you anything back. The reality is that your life will never have space for focus and progress until you start removing the things that waste your hours and leave your mind tired before you've done anything that truly matters. Most people don't realize how much energy they spend on activities that give them nothing in return. It's not just about the hours lost. It's about the mental weight they carry afterward. Something might take only 20 minutes, but if it leaves you distracted or stressed for the rest of the day, the cost is far greater than the time on the clock. The first step toward discipline is to see these activities clearly for what they are, a trade-off you can't afford to keep making. The problem is that many time and energy drains feel harmless. Scrolling endlessly through updates, saying yes to social events you don't actually want to attend, keeping up with arguments that have no solution, watching one more episode because it's easier than starting your work. None of these seem dangerous in the moment, but together they eat away at the hours you could be using to move forward. They keep your mind cluttered with things that don't serve you, making it harder to focus when you need to. To change this, you have to get honest about where your time goes. For 1 week, track every activity you do from the moment you wake up to the moment you go to sleep. Write it down. No filters, no excuses. At the end of that week, look at it with a clear eye. Ask yourself which things actually moved you toward your goals, which things recharged your energy, and which things simply filled space while taking from you. This awareness will surprise you. It will also give you the power to start cutting what doesn't belong. Removing these activities is not always comfortable. Some of them have been part of your routine for years. Some involve people you care about, but who constantly pull you into things that distract you from your priority. Some are even things you enjoy in the moment, but that leave you feeling empty afterward. Discipline is not about cutting out all enjoyment. It's about making sure the way you spend your time matches the life you say you want. There will be moments when you feel pressure to keep certain activities just because they are familiar, but comfort and progress rarely live in the same place. The energy you give to something meaningless is energy you can't give to something important. If you want to see real results, you have to make choices that match your ambitions, not your impulses. Start with the biggest and most obvious drains. Maybe it's overusing your phone. Maybe it's spending hours in conversations that go nowhere. Maybe it's saying yes to every request just to avoid conflict. Pick one and set a clear limit, or remove it entirely. The moment you take back that time, use it for something that matters. That's how you make the change stick. As you do this, you'll notice a mental shift. Your mind will feel lighter. You'll have more space to think about what you truly want to do, instead of constantly reacting to the next distraction. You'll stop feeling like you're always catching up and start feeling like you're in control of your pace. One of the most important things to remember is that not all drains are obvious. Some activities look productive, but actually aren't. Rearranging your workspace over and over, instead of doing the real work. Constantly researching instead of applying what you've learned. Attending endless meetings that don't require your presence. These are disguised distractions. They make you feel busy, but they keep you from moving forward. Protecting your time also means protecting your mental state. Negative conversations, pointless arguments, and constant complaining from others can leave you exhausted, even if they only take a few minutes. Learn to step away from people who thrive on draining the energy of others. This doesn't mean you have to cut every person out of your life, but you do need to decide how much access they get to your attention. You should also be careful with entertainment. There's nothing wrong with enjoying it, but when it becomes your default escape from work you don't want to do, it turns into a trap. Watching, scrolling, or playing for hours might feel good in the moment, but the cost is the energy you could have spent building something meaningful. Many people avoid removing time and energy drains because they don't want to feel bored. But boredom is not the enemy. It's a space where you can think, plan, and create. When you cut the activities that fill every spare moment, you give yourself the chance to actually feel what you need to feel and decide what to do next. That space is where real progress begins. This process will require boundaries. You will have to say no to things that once felt normal. You will have to disappoint people who are used to getting your time whenever they ask. You will have to replace instant entertainment with meaningful action. It will feel uncomfortable at first, but the reward is worth it. You will have more time and more energy for the things that truly matter. It's also important to fill the space you create with intentional action. If you remove distractions but don't replace them with something valuable, you'll fall back into old habits. Decide in advance what you'll do with the extra time. Learn something new. Exercise, work on a project, or spend time with people who inspire you. This makes it easier to stay disciplined because you're not just removing your upgrade. Over time, you'll notice that your days feel longer, not because the hours have changed, but because you're no longer losing them to meaningless activities. You'll end your days with more energy because you're not wasting it on things that drain you. You'll also find that your focus deepens because your mind is no longer cluttered with unnecessary noise. The real benefit of removing these activities is not just more time. It's better quality time. It's the difference between being busy all day and actually making progress. It's the difference between feeling drained at night and feeling accomplished. When you look back over your week and see that most of your hours went to meaningful work and rest, you start to understand just how much power you've taken back. This habit also sharpens your decision-making. The more you practice choosing where your time and energy go, the more naturally you will spot the activities that don't belong. You'll waste less effort debating whether to do something, because you'll already know whether it serves your goals or not. That kind of clarity makes discipline much easier to maintain. Some will see this as being too strict, but they won't see what you see. They won't feel the mental clarity you feel. They won't understand how much better it feels to end the day knowing you put your energy in the right places. They won't understand why you're moving forward faster than they are. But you'll know, and you'll know it's because you made the choice to stop letting meaningless activities steal your life in small pieces. Every minute you take back from a useless activity is a minute you can invest in your growth. Every bit of energy you save from avoiding a draining habit is energy you can use to build something better. And if you keep making those choices every day, you will create results that feel inevitable, not because you worked more hours than anyone else, but because you worked the right hours on the right things. When you protect your time and mental energy, you protect your future. You give yourself the chance to do the work that matters, to grow without constant interruptions, and to live without the constant feeling of being behind. That is what discipline looks like in action, not just doing the work, but making sure nothing steals the focus you need to do it well. And once you live this way long enough, it stops feeling like sacrifice. It feels like freedom. Chapter 5. Take one small step forward even on your hardest days. There will be days when everything feels heavier than usual. Your energy will be low, your motivation will be missing, and even the smallest task will seem overwhelming. These are the days when most people stop completely. They tell themselves they'll wait for a better day, a better mood, or a better moment to start again. But the truth is, waiting rarely helps. Momentum is built by movement, and even the smallest step forward keeps you in motion. That is why taking one small step on your hardest days can make all the difference. Progress is not always about big leaps. In fact, the days when you cannot take a leap are the days when the smallest action matters most. That single step may not seem like much at the time, but it keeps you connected to your goals. It stops you from losing the habit of showing up. And most importantly, it proves to you that you can act even when conditions are far from perfect. When you feel stuck, your mind will try to convince you that nothing is worth doing unless you can give it your full effort. But this is a trap. The truth is, partial effort on a hard day still moves you forward. If you wait for the day you can give 100%, you will lose far too many opportunities to make progress. It's better to give 20% than to give nothing at all. Taking a small step does not mean lowering your standards. It means adjusting your approach to match your reality for that moment. If you can't do the full workout, do 10 minutes. If you can't write a full chapter, write one paragraph. If you can't clean the entire room, clear one surface. These actions may feel small, but they carry a powerful message. I keep moving no matter how I feel. That message is what builds resilience. The hardest days often come with a flood of reasons to stop. You might be dealing with stress, exhaustion, or disappointment. You might feel like the effort isn't worth it because you can't see immediate results. This is where discipline separates you from the crowd. Discipline is choosing to do something anyway, not because it's easy, but because you refuse to let the day defeat you. Even one small step has the power to shift your mood. When you act, you create movement. That movement changes your mental state. The weight you felt at the start of the day may not vanish, but it becomes lighter because you've proven to yourself that you can still take control. You are no longer completely stuck. You've turned the wheel, even if only slightly. It helps to remember that progress compounds. A single step forward might seem tiny in isolation, but repeated over many hard days, it adds up. If you take just one action toward your goal on every difficult day, by the end of the year, you will have dozens of extra steps completed that most people never take. This is the kind of consistency that makes results inevitable. To make this habit easier, prepare a list of minimum actions for each of your goals. These are the smallest possible tasks that still count as progress. For example, if your goal is to learn a skill, your minimum action might be practicing for 5 minutes. If your goal is to build strength, it might be doing 10 push-ups. When the hard days come, you don't have to think. You just pick a minimum action and do it. One of the biggest challenges on hard days is overcoming the feeling that your effort won't matter. You might think, what's the point of doing something so small? The point is that the habit of showing up matters more than the size of the result on any single day. If you protect that habit, your progress will survive the low point. Some days, the small step you take will be purely about keeping the connection to your goal alive. You may not see visible improvement that day, but you're maintaining the bridge between you and your commitment. That bridge is what allows you to return stronger when your energy returns. If you let it break, it's harder to rebuild. This approach also reduces the mental pressure you put on yourself. When you tell yourself you must do everything perfectly or not at all, you create unnecessary weight. By allowing yourself to do something small, you lower the barrier to starting. Once you start, you may find you can do more than you expected. But even if you don't, you still win because you didn't quit. Taking small steps on hard days is also an act of self-respect. It's saying to yourself, I care enough about my future to do something, even if it's not everything. This builds confidence. You stop seeing yourself as someone who is controlled by circumstances and start seeing yourself as someone who can act regardless of them. It's important to be aware that these small steps are not about avoiding rest. Rest is necessary, and there will be days when recovery is the most productive thing you can do. But there's a difference between intentional rest and giving up. The small step habit ensures you rest without losing your connection to your goal. On some of your hardest days, your small step might be as simple as planning your next action for tomorrow, organizing your workspace, or reviewing your goals. These may seem like preparation rather than progress, but preparation counts. It keeps your mind engaged with the process. You will also find that small steps have a way of creating momentum. Even on the most difficult days, you might start with the intention of doing just one thing, but once you finish it, you feel capable of more often. The first action is the hardest. Once you've done it, your mind shifts from resisting work to engaging with it. To strengthen this habit, keep a visible record of the days you've taken action. It can be as simple as crossing off a calendar or checking a box in a notebook. Seeing that you've acted, even on tough days, builds pride and reinforces your commitment. Over time, this record becomes proof of your consistency and determination. Another benefit of this approach is that it prevents the mental crash that comes from completely abandoning your efforts. When you stop entirely, it's harder to restart because you carry the weight of all the days you missed. By taking even the smallest step, you keep the gap between actions small, making it easier to keep going. This is how discipline grows, not from grand gestures on perfect days, but from quiet persistence on difficult ones. Anyone can work hard when conditions are ideal. The people who achieve lasting results are the ones who find a way to work through the days that test them. The mindset you build by doing this will affect every part of your life. You'll become less likely to be thrown off by challenges, because you know you can still move forward no matter how small the step. You'll see that the real power is not in how much you do at once, but in how often you choose to act. When you look back months from now, you will realize that the hardest days were not the ones that slowed you down. They were the ones that strengthened you the most. You will see that the times you took just one small step were the times you proved to yourself that nothing could stop you completely. That's the kind of self-belief that can't be shaken easily. Taking one small step forward on your hardest days is not about pretending everything is fine. It's about accepting that some days will be difficult and choosing to act anyway. It's about respecting your goals enough to keep moving toward them, even if the pace is slower than usual. It's about refusing to let a bad day turn into a wasted one. If you can make this a habit, you'll never truly stop. The size of your progress may change from day to day, but the fact that you keep moving will remain constant. And when you keep moving long enough, the results you've been working for will arrive. Not because the journey was easy, but because you kept going one step at a time, even on the days when it felt the hardest to take them. Chapter 6, Push Past the Point Where Most People Choose to Stop There, is a moment in every effort where the work becomes uncomfortable. At first, you start with energy and focus. The beginning feels manageable. You have control over your pace, and your mind tells you you're doing well. But then, without fail, a point comes where things get heavier. Your muscles burn, your concentration fades, your patience thins, and your mind starts offering you reasons to stop. This is the moment where most people quit. It is the invisible wall that separates those who get average results from those who achieve what others cannot. If you want to create results that are inevitable, you have to push past that wall. Stopping at the first sign of discomfort is easy. It feels reasonable because you've already done more than nothing. You convince yourself that you've put in enough effort for the day. But what you call enough is usually the point where the real work is just beginning. The truth is that growth, strength, and mastery are all built beyond that point of discomfort. If you stop there, you never see what you're actually capable of. When you push past where most people choose to stop, you enter a space where the competition is thin. Most quit as soon as they meet resistance, so the ones who keep going automatically stand out. Whether it's in business, fitness, learning, or personal growth, the willingness to keep going when others are done is one of the most valuable habits you can develop. It's not just about doing more work. It's about proving to yourself that you have more in you than you think. The difficulty in pushing past this point is that your mind will work against you. It will tell you that you're too tired, and that what you've already done is enough that you can finish later. It will remind you of easier options. If you listen, you'll step away and feel a temporary relief, but you'll also lose the chance to break through to your next level. That's why this moment is the real test, not of your ability, but of your mental strength. You have to expect that your brain will resist. It's designed to protect you from discomfort, even when that discomfort is the exact thing that leads to progress. When you feel that urge to stop, recognize it for what it is: a signal that you're in the zone where change happens. Instead of backing off, lean into it, even if it's uncomfortable. Even if you're unsure how much longer you can go, take one more rep, write one more page, make one more call, spend 10 more minutes fully engaged. Every time you go beyond that point, you are reprogramming your limit. What felt impossible today becomes normal tomorrow. That's how capacity grows, not by staying within the boundaries of comfort, but by gently and consistently pushing them outward. You don't need to triple your effort in one day. You just need to go a little further each time you hit the point where you used to stop. This principle applies everywhere. In work, it might mean staying focused for an extra hour after most people log off. In learning, it could mean practicing just a little longer after your mind starts to wander. In health, it could mean running to the next marker when your body tells you to walk. These are the moments that compound over time and create a gap between you and everyone else. One way to prepare for this mentally is to decide in advance how you will respond when you want to quit. If you wait until you're in the moment to decide, you'll almost always choose comfort. But if you've already made a commitment to keep going for a certain amount of time, or until a specific goal is met, you'll have a clear standard to follow even when it's hard. It also helps to track your efforts beyond the quitting point. Keep a record of when you pushed past your usual limit and how much further you went. Seeing this on paper will remind you that you are capable of more than you thought. Over time, this becomes part of your identity. You see yourself as someone who finishes strong, not someone who stops at the first sign of difficulty. Pushing past the stopping point is not about recklessly burning yourself out. It's about training your mind and body to handle more than they currently can. If you keep doing exactly what's comfortable, you'll stay exactly where you are. But if you add a little extra effort every time you hit resistance, you will build strength that most people never experience. Another key is to stop measuring your effort against the average. Most people's standards are low, so if you compare yourself to them, you'll settle too early. Measure yourself against your own potential instead. Ask, can I give more? If the answer is yes, then you have your next step. In the beginning, the extra push will feel exhausting, but soon you'll notice something interesting. Your tolerance for discomfort grows. What used to feel like the wall now feels like a warm-up. The tasks that once drained you now feel easy, and your new limits are far beyond where you started. That's the reward of going beyond. When others stop, you get to operate on a level they never reach. This mindset will also help you in situations where results take a long time to appear. Many quit because they don't see immediate progress. But when you're in the habit of pushing past the point where most stop, you know that the process itself is the victory. You're not just working for the outcome. You're working to become the kind of person who never stops at average. There will be times when you feel completely alone in this. Most people around you will not understand why you push yourself. They might even tell you you're doing too much, that it's okay to relax. But remember, they're speaking from their limits, not yours. Your job is not to live by their standards. It's to create your own. This doesn't mean you can't rest or recover. In fact, recovery is essential if you want to sustain this level of effort over the long term. But there's a difference between intentional rest and quitting early because it's uncomfortable. Learn to know the difference. One builds you, the other holds you back. The discipline to push further is a muscle. The more you train it, the stronger it becomes. At first, it might only be a few extra minutes or a small increase in effort. Over time, it can mean doubling what you once thought was your limit. And that growth doesn't just change your results. It changes how you see yourself. You stop identifying as someone who gives up easily and start seeing yourself as someone who finishes, no matter what. Once this becomes your normal approach, your results will change dramatically. You'll get more done, you'll achieve goals faster, and you'll stand out in any environment, not because you had more talent or more resources, but because you refused to stop where everyone else did. You learn to move through that wall instead of turning back. The truth is, there will always be a point where you feel like stopping. That feeling never completely disappears. But when you make the choice over and over to push past it, you gain something far more valuable than temporary relief. You gain the ability to keep moving in any situation. And that ability is what separates those who talk about results from those who create them. If you want to live a life where results are inevitable, you have to train yourself to see the quitting point as the starting point for your best work. Every time you reach it, remind yourself that this is where most people end. And that's exactly why you have to keep going. Because if you can live in that space where others give up, you'll always be ahead, and you'll always be building a version of yourself that can handle more, achieve more, and become more than you ever thought possible. Stick to your word, even when it costs your comfort. Your word is one of the most important things you own. It is not just a promise to others, it is also a promise to yourself. Every time you commit to something and follow through, you strengthen your own self-respect. Every time you break that commitment, even if no one else knows, you weaken the trust you have in yourself. Discipline and inevitable results are built on the foundation of keeping your word, especially when doing so is inconvenient, uncomfortable, or requires sacrifice. It is easy to keep your word when the conditions are perfect, when the task is exciting, when you have extra time, when nothing unexpected gets in the way. Anyone can stay committed in those moments. The real test is when life throws challenges at you, when you are tired, when you would rather choose comfort over effort, when no one would blame you for backing out. That is when keeping your word matters most, because it forces you to put integrity above convenience. Comfort will always be there, tempting you to adjust your commitments. You might tell yourself you'll start tomorrow, that missing one-time time won't matter, that you deserve a break. And while rest has its place, there is a clear difference between resting with intention and avoiding discomfort by abandoning what you promised. The former builds you, the latter slowly erodes your identity as someone who can be counted on. Every time you keep your word, despite the discomfort, you are sending yourself a powerful message. I do what I say I will do. That message builds an unshakable foundation of self-trust. It means you can rely on yourself even when situations are difficult. And when you can trust yourself, you are no longer dependent on external motivation or constant encouragement. You move forward because you know you will. This principle applies to both commitments you make to others and the ones you make privately. In fact, the promises you make to yourself are even more important because they set the standard for everything else. If you tell yourself you'll wake up at a certain time, complete a task by the end of the day, or stick to a specific habit, and you follow through, you reinforce the belief that your word means something. But if you break those personal promises, you send the opposite message that your word can be negotiated with. When things get hard, keeping your word often requires making choices that others won't understand. Friends may encourage you to skip your plan for something more comfortable or entertaining. They might say it's just this once, or you've done enough already. And in those moments, you have to decide whether you value short-term approval or long-term self-respect more. If you choose your word, you may miss a moment of comfort, but you will gain something far more valuable, a stronger sense of who you are. It is also important to set realistic commitments. Keeping your word does not mean agreeing to everything. In fact, one of the most effective ways to protect your integrity is to be careful about what you promise in the first place. If you know you cannot give something the time and energy it deserves, it is better to say no from the start than to agree and later break your word. Discipline is not just about follow-through. It is also about making thoughtful commitments that align with your priorities. There will be times when keeping your word feels like it costs more than it gives. You may have to give up comfort, entertainment, or even sleep to honor your commitment. But what you gain in character, resilience, and trust in yourself far outweighs those costs. Those are the moments that separate the average from the exceptional. The truth is, many people operate on a conditional commitment. They will do what they said only if it's still comfortable, still convenient, still exciting. The moment it becomes hard, they adjust or step away. This mindset produces inconsistent results and an unstable sense of self. On the other hand, when you decide that your word is final, that once you say you will do something, it is as good as done, you create a level of reliability that changes your entire life. This discipline also impacts how others see you. People naturally respect those who follow through. They trust them with opportunities, responsibilities, and leadership, because they know those individuals can be relied upon. While it is never wise to live only for the approval of others, the credibility you build through consistent action opens doors that inconsistency will never open. You will find that the act of keeping your word often creates momentum. Even if you don't feel like starting, simply honoring the commitment can put you into a state of focus and productivity. Once you begin, the discomfort often fades, replaced by the satisfaction of moving forward. And that satisfaction reinforces the habit, making it easier to repeat in the future. It is also worth noting that comfort is temporary. Skipping your commitment might feel good for a short moment, but it is often followed by frustration or disappointment. On the other hand, following through despite discomfort may be challenging in the moment, but it leaves you with lasting pride. That pride is fuel. It reminds you that you are capable of more than your feelings might suggest. Sometimes keeping your word will mean standing alone in your decision. Others might choose the easier path. They may not understand why you're working late, getting up early, or saying no to certain activities. They might even criticize your choices. But in time, the results of your discipline will speak louder than their opinions. The benefits of your consistency will show in your achievements, your confidence, and your sense of control over your life. When you look at those who achieve extraordinary things, you'll find a common pattern. They value their word over their comfort. They make commitments carefully and honor them fully. They see their word as a reflection of their character, not just a casual statement. And they understand that if they cannot keep promises to themselves, they cannot expect to create lasting results in anything else. To live this way, you need to create a personal rule. When you say you will do something, you do it regardless of how you feel later. This removes the constant negotiation that causes so many people to break their commitments. It becomes simple if you said it. It's happening. There is a deep satisfaction in knowing you are dependable, not just in the eyes of others, but in your own eyes. You stop questioning whether you'll follow through, because it's no longer a matter of willpower. It's simply part of who you are. That certainty gives you confidence in tackling bigger challenges, because you know you will do what needs to be done no matter what obstacles appear. Over time, this habit builds a level of resilience that others admire and sometimes envy. While they are still deciding whether to act, you've already acted. While they are wondering if the conditions are right, you're creating results in imperfect conditions. That gap in consistency is what makes your results inevitable. In the end, sticking to your word, even when it costs your comfort, is not just about completing tasks. It's about shaping your identity. It's about becoming the kind of person who can be trusted to follow through, regardless of how easy or hard it is. When you live this way, you separate yourself from the majority. You create a life built on strength, reliability, and the confidence that comes from knowing you always honor your commitments. And that kind of life does not happen by chance. It happens because you chose to keep your word every single time, no matter the cost. Chapter 8, follow your plan on the days it feels pointless. There will be days when your effort feels like it makes no difference. You will follow your schedule, do the work, and still feel as if nothing is moving forward. These days can be some of the hardest to push through, not because the work is impossible, but because the reward feels invisible. Your mind starts asking questions. Why am I doing this? Does this even matter? Would it really hurt if I skipped just this once? Those thoughts can be dangerous, because they tempt you to break the consistency that progress depends on. Progress is not always visible in the moment. Much of what creates real change happens in ways you can't immediately measure. Seeds grow underground before you ever see them break the surface. Skills develop quietly before you can demonstrate them with ease. Strength builds slowly before you notice it in the mirror. The fact that you can't see instant proof doesn't mean your actions are pointless. It means you're in the stage where patience matters most. Following your plan on these days is an act of discipline that separates you from almost everyone else. Most people will give less effort or take a break when they don't feel like it's working. They look for proof before continuing, not realizing that the proof often comes after they've been consistent for much longer than they expected. Those who keep going without that proof eventually get it, And they also build the mental toughness to handle bigger challenges in the future when things feel pointless. It's not always the work that's the problem. It's the way your mind is interpreting it. Your brain craves visible results and quick wins, and when it doesn't get them, it tries to convince you that you're wasting your time. The truth is, sticking to your plan when motivation is low builds a kind of inner strength that motivation alone can never give you. There is also a practical reason why you should stick to your plan during these moments. Discipline works like a muscle every time you follow through despite not feeling like it. You strengthen that muscle every time you skip because it feels pointless. You weaken it over time. This difference compounds. Those who keep exercising the discipline muscle eventually find that following the plan becomes second nature, even in the absence of inspiration. You don't need to feel excited for the plan to work. You need to do the work for the plan to work. Many people confuse feelings with progress. They think that if they don't feel inspired, the work won't have an impact. But the truth is, feelings are unreliable and progress often happens quietly in the background while you're too focused on the difficulty to notice it. One of the most dangerous habits you can fall into is making decisions based on mood rather than commitment. If you only follow your plan when you feel motivated, you will always be inconsistent, and inconsistency kills results. The power of following the plan, even on the worst days, is that it keeps the chain unbroken. You preserve the momentum you've built instead of starting over again and again. There will be times when following your plan feels repetitive. You'll question whether it's even worth it. But discipline is not about novelty. It's about repetition. The tasks that feel ordinary are often the ones that make the biggest difference over time. It's the daily actions, done without fail, that create a foundation strong enough to hold the weight of long-term success. When you're tempted to skip because it feels pointless, remind yourself of why you created the plan in the first place. Your plan exists to guide you towards something you decided was important. That reason doesn't disappear just because you're having a low-energy day. If anything, those are the days when your plan matters most, because it keeps you moving, when your feelings would otherwise keep you still. Sometimes the simple act of completing your plan will shift your mood. Even if you start the day feeling flat, the process of showing up and taking action can give you a sense of accomplishment. That accomplishment builds confidence, and that confidence makes it easier to keep going tomorrow. On the other hand, giving in to the feeling that it's pointless can lead to regret, and regret is a much heavier burden to carry than temporary discomfort. It's also important to remember that you're not just building results, you're building identity. Every time you stick to your plan in the absence of motivation, you reinforce the belief that you are someone who can be relied on. That belief is powerful because it changes how you approach challenges. When you trust yourself to follow through no matter what, you stop wasting energy wondering whether you'll act. You just act. If you need a practical way to handle days when the work feels meaningless, break your tasks into smaller parts. Commit to doing just the first part. Often, starting with something manageable creates the momentum to do more than you originally planned. And even if you only complete that first part, you still win because you stayed aligned with your plan instead of abandoning it. Another effective approach is to track your consistency rather than your feelings. Keep a record of the days you completed your plan. Over time, you'll see that your progress doesn't depend on how inspired you felt. It depends on how often you showed up. This kind of tracking shifts your focus from chasing feelings to building habits. And habits are what produce results. You should also avoid the trap of comparing your progress to someone else's on the days when things feel slow. Seeing someone else's apparent success can make you doubt your own efforts, but you have no idea how many days they felt the same way and kept going anyway. The only standard that matters is your own plan and your own consistency. Sticking to your plan when it feels pointless also protects you from the dangerous habit of quitting too soon. Many people abandon a process that is working simply because they can't see the results yet. They dig for weeks, then stop just before reaching the goal. If you have a well-designed plan, the smartest move you can make is to keep following it long enough for it to work. This doesn't mean you should ignore all feedback or never adjust your approach. It means you should not make changes based solely on emotion. Evaluate your plan at planned intervals, not in the heat of frustration. This allows you to make clear-headed decisions instead of impulsive ones. When you look back at your journey, you'll realize that the days you wanted to skip but didn't were turning points. They were proof that you could act without the crutch of excitement. They were proof that you could keep going when the payoff wasn't obvious. And they were proof that you could rely on yourself to do what needed to be done, no matter the mood or the circumstances. If you make this a habit, your results will not be a matter of luck. They will be the natural outcome of your consistency. You won't have to hope for progress because you'll know you've done the work that creates it. And you'll have built the kind of self-discipline that makes success in any area of life possible. Following your plan on the days it feels pointless is not glamorous. It won't get you instant praise or attention, but it will give you something far more valuable: steady, reliable progress. And if you can keep moving forward on the days when most people stop, you'll eventually reach a place they never will. Not because you were more talented or more motivated, but because you stayed the course when they didn't. Hold yourself to higher standards than anyone expects from you. The standards you set for yourself will always shape the life you live. When you rely only on the expectations of others, you limit your growth to what they think is acceptable. Most people will not push you to your full potential. They will push you just enough to keep you functioning. If you want to become your best, you have to demand more from yourself than anyone else ever will. This is not about impressing others or proving something to the world. It is about creating a standard that keeps you moving forward, even when no one is watching, correcting, or guiding you. When you hold yourself to higher standards, you stop waiting for outside pressure to drive your actions. You don't need someone to monitor your work, remind you of deadlines, or motivate you into action. You become your own source of accountability. That independence changes everything, because you no longer depend on external forces to keep you on track. You move with a sense of responsibility that comes from within, and that's a far stronger foundation than living up to someone else's checklist. The reality is that most environments are designed for average performance. Many workplaces are satisfied with good enough. Many social circles avoid pushing each other too hard out of fear of making someone uncomfortable. If you allow yourself to blend into that environment, you will match its standards, and over time, you will accept average as normal. The only way to rise above that is to set a standard that's higher than the one around you and commit to meeting it every day. This means deciding that your work will be better than what is required. If the deadline is next week, you aim to finish it early. If the minimum is an hour of practice, you give 2. If others are satisfied with surface-level understanding, you go deeper until you truly master it. It's not about working endlessly without rest. It's about consistently going beyond what would be considered acceptable, so that excellence becomes your habit. Holding yourself to higher standards also means being honest. When you fall short, even if no one else not, you might meet everyone else's expectations, but still know in your own mind that you could have done better. Instead of celebrating that you got away with doing less, you take it as a sign to raise your effort. That kind of self-awareness is rare, but it's what separates people who grow from people who stagnate. You have to be willing to push yourself in moments where others would settle. That might mean redoing work because you know it's not your best. Even though others would accept, might mean asking harder questions, seeking more feedback, or practicing longer until you are truly satisfied with the result. These choices can be tiring in the moment, but over time they build a reputation, not just in the eyes of others, but in your own identity that you are someone who delivers quality every single time. A higher standard does not mean perfectionism. Perfectionism often comes from fear. Fear of judgment, fear of mistakes, fear of not being enough. High standards come from a place of strength. You choose them because you value your growth and your results too much to settle for the minimum. They are not a cage. They are a compass that points you toward excellence. When you operate at this level, you will notice a shift in how people treat you. Opportunities will come more often because people trust you to deliver. They know that if something is in your hands, it will be handled with care and attention. And even though outside recognition is not your primary goal, it will often follow naturally when your output consistently surpasses expectations. The challenge of living this way is that you can't hide from yourself. You can't excuse laziness by comparing yourself to someone doing less. You can't take comfort in meeting a low bar. You will notice when you are not giving enough, and you will feel the discomfort of knowing you could have done more. This is a good thing. It means your standards are alive and working. That discomfort is the signal that you're capable of more, and it should push you to act accordingly. Higher standards also demand consistency. It's not enough to push yourself hard for a week and then relax into old habits. The real power comes from making it your normal way of living. That doesn't mean you never rest. It means that even on your lighter days, you still operate at a level that's above the average. You maintain quality in all conditions. There will be people who don't understand why you push yourself so much. They might say you're making life harder than it needs to be. They might call you intense or too serious. But what they don't realize is that you're not working harder because you hate where you are. You're working harder because you know where you could be. You're not chasing exhaustion. You're chasing potential. The most valuable part of holding yourself to higher standards is the relationship you build with yourself. Every time you meet your own standard, you prove that you can rely on yourself. That trust creates confidence, and that confidence spills into every area of life. You no longer question whether you can rise to an occasion. You already know you will, because it's what you do to keep this mindset strong. You should regularly review your standards and ask if they are still pushing you forward. Standards that challenge you today may be too easy tomorrow, and if you're not careful, you'll drift back into comfort. Challenge yourself to keep raising the bar in a sustainable way, so you're always growing without burning out. You also need to remember that high standards are not about competing with others. They are about competing with the version of yourself from yesterday. Your goal is not to be better than someone else. It's to be better than you were before. This keeps your motivation pure and removes the need for external validation. Over time, living by higher standards becomes part of your identity. It's no longer something you have to force. It's simply the way you operate. Others might struggle to match it, but for you, it feels natural because it's been built through daily choices and self-discipline. And the more you live this way, the more you separate yourself from the limitations of the average mindset. When you look back, you'll see that the extra effort was always worth it. You'll see that the higher standard didn't just produce better results. It produced a stronger, more capable, more reliable version of yourself. You'll see that the opportunities you received, the trust you earned, and the life you built all came from refusing to settle for what was simply good enough. In the end, no one will care about your success as much as you do. No one will push you harder than you can push yourself. That's why it's your responsibility to set the bar higher than anyone else would set it for you. When you live this way long enough, your results stop being a matter of chance. They become the predictable outcome of the standards you refuse to compromise. And once you experience that level of control over your life, You'll never go back to living by anyone else's expectations again. Chapter 10, Keep building habits until they replace all your excuses. Excuses are the silent thieves of progress. They come dressed as reasonable explanations, but their only purpose is to keep you from taking action. Everyone has them: too tired, not enough time, don't feel ready, need to wait to the right moment. The problem is, excuses grow stronger the more you entertain them. They start small, but over time they become your default response to anything uncomfortable. The only way to break their hold is to replace them with habits so strong and automatic that you act before excuses have the chance to take control. Habits are powerful because they bypass the need for constant decision-making. When something becomes a habit, you don't waste energy debating whether to do it, you simply do it. That's why building habits is one of the most effective ways to eliminate excuses. If you wake up and exercise every morning without question, there's no space for "I don't feel like it" to slip in. If you have a set routine for starting your workday, "I'll start later" never has a chance to take root. The first step in replacing excuses with habits is identifying the patterns that stop you from following through. Excuses often sound convincing because they are tied to feelings, fatigue, doubt, frustration, or fear. If you try to fight them with willpower alone, you will lose, often because willpower is inconsistent. Some days you'll win, but other days you won't. Habits solve this problem by making the action non-negotiable. Start small. Pick one thing you know would move your life forward if you did it consistently. Make it your priority to do it every day, no matter how you feel. It doesn't have to be a big change right away. It just has to be something you commit to fully. The goal is to prove to yourself that action can become automatic. Once you see that happen, you can build more habits on top of it. Excuses thrive when there's uncertainty in your plan. If your schedule is vague, it's easy to find reasons to push things off. That's why structure is important. Decide exactly when and how you will do the task and keep it the same until it becomes second nature. Over time, the repetition will create a rhythm that is harder to break than it is to follow. As your habits grow stronger, they begin to replace the mental space that excuses once occupied. You stop wasting energy coming up with reasons not to act because the action is already in motion. Think of it like a machine that runs on its own. Once it's started, it keeps going with little effort to maintain it. It's also important to track your progress. Every day you follow through on a habit, you're proving to yourself that you can act without giving in to excuses. Keep a visible record. Check marks on a calendar, a journal entry, a progress tracker, something you can look at and see the chain of consistency you've built. The longer that chain gets, the harder it is to break. Building habits that destroy excuses also requires being honest with yourself. Sometimes what you call a reason is actually just a disguised excuse. For example, saying you don't have time often means you haven't prioritized it. Saying you don't know where to start often means you're avoiding the discomfort of learning. When you start to recognize these patterns, you can address the real problem instead of accepting the excuse at face value. Another key is designing your environment to make good habits easy and excuses harder. If your phone distracts you from work, put it in another room during your focus hours. If you keep skipping workouts because your clothes aren't ready, set them out the night before. Small adjustments like these remove the friction that excuses feed on. As your habits take root, you'll notice something important. Actions that once felt like a struggle now feel normal. You no longer need to convince yourself to do them. The resistance fades because you've shown your mind and body that this is simply what you do. That shift is when you know the habit has replaced the excuse completely. You can apply this approach to every area of life. In health, habits can replace "I'll start next week." In learning, they can replace "I don't have the right resources yet." In personal goals, They can replace "I'll wait until I'm ready." The principle is always the commit to a small, repeatable action and protect it until it becomes part of who you are. There will still be days when excuses try to come back. The difference is, when you have strong habits, they don't stand a chance. You might hear them, but you won't obey them because your actions are already in motion. That's the power of habits. They make doing the right thing easier than avoiding it. This process will take time. You won't erase every excuse overnight. But if you keep building one habit at a time, you'll notice the space for excuses shrinking. They'll have nowhere to hide because your routines will be too strong. Each habit you lock in makes you less dependent on motivation and more reliant on discipline. You'll also start to see that excuses and habits cannot exist in the same place for long. One will always overpower the other. If your excuses are stronger, they will break your habits. If your habits are stronger, they will erase your excuses. That's why your focus must be on making the habit unshakable, no matter the conditions. Once this becomes your way of living, you gain freedom. You no longer feel trapped by procrastination or lack of motivation. You trust yourself to act because it's what you've trained yourself to do. That self-trust removes a huge mental burden. You no longer waste energy deciding whether to act. You simply act. When you look back, you'll see that the habits you built didn't just remove excuses. They built a new identity. You'll see yourself as someone who follows through, someone who does the work without needing to be pushed, someone who achieves results because action is simply a part of life. That identity is far more powerful than any temporary burst of motivation because it's rooted in daily proof. In the end, excuses lose their power when you take away the space they live in. That space is created by hesitation, by unstructured time, by unclear priorities. Fill that space with consistent habits, and you leave no room for avoidance. You'll still have challenges, you'll still have tough days, but you'll face them from a place of action, not from a place of delay. If you commit to building habits until they replace all your excuses, you won't need to rely on willpower or wait for the right moment to get started. You'll already be moving forward day after day because that's just who you've become. And when that's the case, results stop being something you hope for. They become the natural outcome of the life you've built.